Hello everyone, I wanted to make a quick little guide on how to deal with Amani's block strings. I'm not going to go too much into details over this one. I'm probably just going to focus on the guiding principles, like overall what I'm looking for, what I want to do as Amani, versus what you should want to do, versus my default block strings. And I'll finish pretty quickly with what Amani wants to do as a response to that. So just a little bit going over the RPS. So, guiding principle number one, Amani. I have a little block string here from Amani. It's doing a lot of drills, a lot of forward hop, a lot of chip damage. This is kind of the default block string that Amani wants to do over and over again. If I could do this without my opponent doing anything in response, I would eventually win the match. It would take a while, but the design of this block string is not to open up the opponent, it's to force a response out of it, right? Because if they do not respond, at some point, Amani just wins. Alright? So even if you try to prevent me from doing this, there's enough value in doing it that I will keep on doing it. If you don't prevent me, I win. If you prevent me, then I can start exploiting what you can do. So there's a few things to know about this block string. There's not a lot of exploitable points, because most of this is a frame trap. And after the jump Ds, the jumping drills, Amani is plus. So if I try to mash here, it'll actually stuff me. If I try to mash anywhere in here, it's a block string. If I try to mash here, they'll actually stuff me. So the only point in there that's mashable is this hop right here. But it's pretty tight. Obviously, you can press like a fast panic button or your anti-air, right? And that's pretty good. That's pretty good, I won't lie. And so knowing that the only weak point to this block string is an anti-air or a mash from the opponent, Amani has a few countermeasures, right? You can obviously just not hop, so that when you do go for an anti-air, Amani can just whiff punish. Another example of what Amani can do is just extend the frame trap a little bit further to stuff your anti-air. Like this. And besides that, even if you do know that it's coming, it's a pretty tight window to actually anti-air correctly. Because this block string doesn't happen at a specific spacing or from a specific normal, but it is pretty tight to anti-air, meaning it's pretty easy to miss. And overall, pretty undesirable. As if that wasn't enough, when Amani gets level 2 or level 3 drill, this gap becomes smaller. The drill normals have extended block stun when they're higher levels, meaning the gap to anti-air is sometimes too small or just really, really, really tight. When I say too small, it's character specific, depending on how fast your anti-air is. Now, don't get me wrong, you can still anti-air this block string, and sometimes you'll even need to. However, we can do something better. If you want a less risky option than pressing a button and maybe getting exposed to Amane fishing for a counter hit or doing a frame trap, what I recommend is trying to barrier out Amane from the jump D. Jump D is plus, but if you push out Amane, it becomes harder for Amane to leverage the frame advantage. Here's an example. As you saw in that example, if you barrier Amane's jump D, yes, Amane is still plus, but he is so far out that it becomes a little harder for him to leverage the frame advantage correctly. I'll show you again just a little example. I'm only going to barrier the jump D here. If you try to barrier the rest of the normals, you're still also helping yourself, because Amani hopping forward leaves a larger gap if he's further away from you. The closer he is to you, tighter the gap will feel. While if you create some distance, you can actually create a larger gap that's easier to anti-air. I'm going to try to mash 5B between the hop on this block string, and it won't work. Ragnar will get stuck. However, if I barrier a few normals from Amane prior to the hop, it will create a gap large enough that 5B can come out. And this only happens because Amani is further out. The closer he is to you, the tighter this gap can become. So at every point of the block string, you have an incentive to barrier, either to make something with, or to push Amani out so that he can't leverage this frame advantage. If you do this correctly, not only will it make the gap for your anti-air on the hop easier, but it will also just allow you to escape the block string. That's correct. If you push Amane out, you don't have to block. You can leave. Once a player knows that they can just escape Amane by pushing him out, Amane has two ways of beating those styles of players. One is to just waste a lot of times in block strings, doing longer things just to exhaust their barrier. A second thing that Amani can do is start chasing a little bit more aggressively. If you look at hop forward jump B, it kind of cuts the momentum from Amani, but if he does another button, he'll go much further out. Or if he does the B hop, he'll go really far. But like I was saying earlier, the further out Amani is from you, the bigger the gap is in the block string. So if he starts doing the B hop, there's a bigger gap before he can press a button again, meaning it's easier to anti-air. If he starts doing jump B, this button is slower than jump D, meaning it's easier to anti-air. It's the Amani's player's job to start doing these block strings when they have a read that the player they're playing against won't anti-air. Even though the gap is bigger, it's really meant to target someone that is playing passively and trying to push Amani out. These other jump normals are much more efficient at catching someone just trying to chicken block. But when the Amani player starts doing that, you should be a lot more confident that your anti-airs are much more likely to work. And so now we know that barriering Amani out to push him is one of the least committal ways to correctly deal with this pressure. Last thing you should know is that whenever Amani changes drill level, the barrier pushback on his drill normals is higher, meaning that this prototypical block strings from earlier that we could already barrier out, right? It's only going to be easier to barrier this block string out on drill level 2 and drill level 3. So here's an example where I only barrier the 5D and the jump Ds. And here's an example on drill level 2. So as you could see, our sample block string at drill level 2 even messed up to the point where Amani would need to cancel even earlier to chase and stay in. You could see a glimpse of the last thing that I'm about to show in the previous clip. Jump D is plus. However, if it's possible to barrier it out entirely to change the frame advantage. So I have a alternate version of the block string that I was doing earlier. I'm going to block it entirely, and then both characters will jump just to show that the dummy Amani on the right has a lot of frame advantage. So the Amani on the right jumped noticeably earlier. Now what I'm going to do is barrier out the two jump Ds and jump after at the same time. Because the last hit of the second jump D doesn't connect, Amane is already outside of my range, he will have less frame advantage or straight up be negative. And now you can see both Amane jumped at the same time, or really close to. Alright, so let's resume what was shown in this video. If you don't prevent Amane from doing his thing, he's just going to do this block string over and over again and win for it. Because you can't let Amane do that, one of the exploitable points is that you can mash on the hop forward. However, as we've shown earlier, Amane has multiple ways to stuff a button or an attempt to mash here, which can get you killed. So instead of trying to push a button, a recommended easy thing to do is to just barrier Amane out to make it harder for him to stay in, or to simply make him lose his frame advantage. When you do this correctly, you can go back to neutral pretty safely and escape Amane's pressure. At that point, the Amane player needs to start chasing you more aggressively to keep the pressure going. But if they do that, it makes it easier again for you to anti-air, and less risky overall. And so that's it for this video. I hope it helps. I did not want to cover everything. I really just wanted to give you this brief overview and visually demonstrate how you can correctly answer this without taking risks. And if you have questions regarding other things in Amane's pressure or anything like that, I will answer them in the comments. If you're an Amane player yourself and you're wondering the ins and outs of Amane's pressure, I'm not making a video on this because there's already a great resource in the character Discord, which I will leave a link to in the description. But that is it for now, guys. Thank you very much for watching. Peace. See you later.